This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Maximus. On this edition of FedGov Today, modernizing the rollover game at the TSP.
We are part of the team that is working to develop an electronic process for that in the future. But today it does involve paperwork.
Jim Kaplan of the TSP on FedGov Today in just a moment. Uniting program strategy, advanced technology, process, and execution for a more efficient government. That's Maximus. Every program, every service, every time. That's innovation forward. Learn more at maximus.com/federal. The Thrift Savings Plan has a concierge service available for you now, but it's not going to get you a rental car or concert tickets. Jim Kaplan's Director of External Affairs at Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board. Jim, I told you before we went on the air that I have this wonderful image of my mind of you in a concierge uniform talking to people on the thrift line and saying, I would be happy to help you move your other accounts to your Thrift Savings Plan account. But I'm pretty sure that's not how it works, right, Jim? Welcome.
Thank you, Francis. To an extent, it actually is. We're not all dressed up and standing at a desk waiting to find you the right situation. But what we do have is people at the TSP thrift line who are ready to take you through that process and do a lot of the work for you. What we see is a lot of folks choose to take advantage of the low cost and the high returns that they see at the Thrift Savings Plan over some of the things that they may have earned at other points in their career in the private service. And so we have a Thrift Savings Plan concierge service, as we call it, that you can find on tsp.gov. And a rollover specialist will assist you with every step of the process. They'll contact your old provider who's administering your account and figure out what you need to do to roll it over to the TSP. They'll help complete the paperwork on your behalf. They'll send it to you for any signatures that are required. They'll finalize the rollover, and then they'll touch base with you to make sure that the money went into your TSP account accurately. So they're with you every step of the way. And about 70% of folks who roll funds into their TSP account from their old private accounts use our concierge service. And in just March of this year, we rolled in more than $220 million of private funds into the TSP and over $627 million over the first quarter of this year of TSP participants who are so pleased with their accounts that they've decided to consolidate in the TSP and roll money into their TSP accounts.
How did you develop the concierge service? And what were the components that you decided were the things that your participants would want that would be helpful to them, Jim?
As we developed our new record keeper system a few years ago and put that into place, we had the ability to put more technology and more capabilities in place for our participants and beneficiaries. And so we sat down with what are some of the options people want, whether that's the new Roth in-plan conversion we've developed or whether that was an easier way to roll funds in. Now, rollovers are challenging across the industry because you need to make sure that the money that moves from one type of account that's been in a tax-free or tax-exempt retirement account goes into a similar account. And so there's a little bit more effort than just transferring something electronically or writing a check. The information needs to roll over with the actual account. We know that that means there's paperwork involved. We are part of the team that is working to develop an electronic process for that in the future. But today it does involve paperwork. And anytime there's paperwork, people are busy. They have lives, they have jobs, they have other things. They want to make this choice, but they know that there are challenges and they want to make sure it's doing it right. So we worked with our record keeper and our office participant experience, worked to improve that experience, to do all of the steps for them that we can to make it easier so that if they choose to do that, we can make it happen.
I also note from experience, Jim, different providers do things in different ways. There are some cases where if I'm moving money from account A to account B, account A wants me to initiate the paperwork with them. In some cases, account B wants me to initiate the paperwork with them. So I imagine it's tremendously helpful to have somebody else navigate all that so I don't have to figure out all of those details. I imagine you have a database of information that helps your team understand where they need to start those processes.
Exactly. And that's another benefit of the Thrift Savings Plan being the size that it is with so many participants, is that we've worked across so many different financial institutions and we have that experience to be able to work and share that experience across our workforce to make sure that we can help our participants make it as smooth a transition as possible.
I note from looking at the notes from your most recent monthly board meeting, the Thrift Savings Plan lists 12 enterprise risks. Only one of them is rated medium high, higher than the medium. And that one is cybersecurity. I don't think anybody's surprised to hear that. How do you treat cybersecurity as an enterprise risk at the TSP, Jim?
Sure. So our chief risk officer and her team are constantly evaluating and on an annual basis report out what they see as the risks facing the TSP. Most of them are standard things that everybody's expecting and planning for. It's not a surprise. And it's not a surprise that cybersecurity is the greatest risk, not because we have vulnerabilities. We have a great cybersecurity team. Our chief information security officer serves on the council and is the chair for the small agencies. We are on the cutting edge of cybersecurity and very proud of our 5 rating on FISMA across the board. But it's just the threat is so prevalent. There are so many threats out there around the world of people trying to get access. And we take our responsibility to our participants and to securing their funds very seriously. And so we recognize that this is probably the greatest threat we face, and therefore we spend a lot of time, resources, and efforts making sure that we are ready to face that challenge.
When I look at your enterprise risk profile dashboard, I note that there are only 2 risks that rank medium low: records management and reputational risk of TSP operations. What is it about those 2 that causes you to be optimistic?
I think in part it's because we have long-standing processes in place. On our records management, we have systems in place. Most of our stuff's electronic. Most of our records for our participants are all done through our record keeper with multiple backups, both in paper and otherwares. Reputational risk of the TSP, I'll take a little bit of the credit for that, in that we try to make sure that we are communicating and that we are aware of any challenge that might face and that we're ready to respond and keep our participants informed. That goes back to last year when we had people asking what changes in government would mean to their accounts. And we pointed out, nope, under the law, we hold these in trust for our participants and our accounts are safe and secure and private. And so we are aware of the risks out there to our reputation. And that's one of my top priorities, is making sure that we're keeping our participants informed and that we are really good on our response. And of course, our participant experience office under Jim Courtney, they do a great job. And that's why we see such a positive return on people pleased with their interactions with the TSP, right? That 94, 95% participant approval rating for the work we do with them. We focus on that. That is one of our metrics with our record keeper, with our private contractors, to make sure that we're keeping those responses up and that we are being responsive to our participants. And as long as we do that, we're confident that our reputation will remain strong.
Before we went on the air, Jim, you told me about a reminder about direct deposits that you're sharing with your participants. Review that with me again, please.
Well, sure. As we talked about both reputation and security, it's important to remember that you control when that money comes out of your account and where it goes. And it's a lot easier if you've set up a direct connection between your TSP account and your bank account to just do it electronically and not have to wait for that check in the mail that may or may not arrive on time and as expected, and that you would then have to go and deposit or take care of. Now, we remind folks, even if you're not regularly withdrawing money from your accounts, even if you're not planning to withdraw from your account for some time, go ahead and set that up now, because it takes 7 business days once you've set it up before it's a valid link to prevent fraud, to make sure that somebody, when you get that notice saying a new account was created, somebody's not creating an account and taking money out that day. That's part of that cybersecurity that we talked about. And so it's a good thing as part of your regular housekeeping and review of your account to go ahead and make sure that your bank account is in your system, it's accurate, it's up to date, so that when you're ready to withdraw and begin your retirement process, you have access to your funds in a safe and secure and timely manner.
Another item that you flagged for me before we went on the air is that there's an interesting dichotomy between what folks who've been in the government for a long time, how they're managing their accounts and what types of accounts they're putting their money in, and the types of accounts that younger people that are just starting out and may have lower balances are putting their money into, Jim.
Sure. Well, with the Thrift Savings Plan, you have a standard retirement account where your taxes are deferred, which is to say you aren't taxed on the money you put in as part of your income for that year. But when you take the money out in retirement, that is your income, and that's when you're going to start paying taxes on it. However, folks are familiar with what's called a Roth retirement account. And in that case, you're taxed on the money as income when you put it in. But when it comes out after all of that growth, you don't pay taxes on it because you paid the taxes going in. A lot of times that means when you have a lower tax bracket, when you are paying less taxes, especially when you're young and early in your career, you can put money in that will then grow over that 20 or 30 years of your work time experience. and be worth a lot more money when you take it out and don't have to pay the taxes on it. What we see is if you look at our participants in the blended retirement system, which are mostly young folks joining the military, doing their service at a young age, they're not bringing in a lot of income and they're not paying a high tax rate. But more than 3/4 of the funds that they're putting into their TSP account, they're putting into a Roth account because they're avoiding those taxes. They're paying the taxes when it's low. And then when it's grown 20 or 30, 40 years down the road, when they're hitting their 60s, they'll be able to take it out and not have to pay taxes on it. Our CSRS and our FERS employees, they're much later along in their careers. They're probably at a higher tax bracket. They don't put as much into the Roth accounts today because it makes more sense to avoid paying the taxes. The growth isn't going to be as dramatic. But for those young people, we are seeing that they're putting a large percentage into the Roth account, and we're glad that we have both options available for all of our participants.
Terrific food for thought as always, my friend. Thanks for coming on today, Jim.
Thanks for having us, Francis.
You can read more about the TSP and all its iterations on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Bob, Bobby, and Oz are three of the newest contracting experts at the Interior Department, but they're not people, they're bots. Andrea Brandon, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Budget, Finance, Grants, and Acquisition at Interior, tells you what they do and how they do it on this week's FedGov Today TV. The new show's out now. You can watch on demand on the FedGov Today YouTube channel and on fedgovtoday.com. The next FedGov Today podcast is coming Thursday. I'm Francis Rose. I'll talk to you then. Thanks for listening.